Hi, my name is Khleif, and I'm the host of the Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing podcast. And every week I interview multifamily rock stars, and we talk about how they've built incredible wealth for themselves and their families through multifamily properties. So hit the like and subscribe buttons to get notified every Monday when a new episode comes out. Let's get to it. Welcome back to Multifamily Rockstars. As you guys know, this is where we interview people that are just flat out crushing it in this business, and we show you guys the inside scoop as to how multifamily investors are creating massive success in their businesses and in their lives. And as always, I've got my co-host who's the director of the Massive Action Team for our Warrior Group, Mark Nagy.
What's up, Rod? Happy to have another young guy on the podcast today, so this will be a fun one.
Yeah, he's a hitter too. His name's Mike Menino, and both him and his dad are in the Warrior program. And he's doing a lot of stuff. He's done 80 flips. He's wholesaled a bunch of deals. He made $175,000 wholesaling a deal. He helped another Warrior make $225,000 wholesaling a deal. They've got 50 units in multifamily, but also involved in self-storage. Just a lot of stuff going on. Mike, welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you, Rod, for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, why don't you take a minute and just talk a little bit about your journey? I mean, you're killing it. How old are you?
I just turned 30 this year. Yeah.
30. Oh, you're old now. You're old as dirt. Okay. All right.
Thanks for making me feel good about that.
Anyway, so why don't you take a minute and just give us a little bit of your background? Why real estate and just bring us kind of give us an overview.
Sure. Yeah. I'll kind of start like where it began. So my first house I bought, I was actually 19 years old. This is back in 2012. I'm from Michigan. And I saved up $14,500 from working at McDonald's, then to bussing tables and then waiting tables. And I bought a foreclosed house for, I think, $67,000. It was a 3-bed, 2-bath. And
where?
Up in Michigan.
Okay.
Michigan, yep, where I'm from. So this is like, Michigan got hit really, really hard, and it was a foreclosure. So I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm young enough, I can figure this out myself. So I'll never forget the day. I wrote a $7,000 check because I got an FHA loan. It was only 3% down, and that left me with like $7,000 and a foreclosed house with like blood on the walls. I had to like scrape off of like the baseboards and just a lot of spunk. But it was really cool because this is before I got into podcasts, and I was actually house hacking before I even knew what that was. I was waiting tables at the time. My mortgage was only $600, and I rented out the other 2 bedrooms to people I waited tables with for $300 a month each. So now I'm 19 years old, going to community college, waiting tables, and my mortgage is now covered for me. And that's when I knew I was like, all right, there is something to this, and I need to pursue this more. A few years later, I actually ended up selling it at 21 years old for $147,000. And I walked away with the closing table with a $60,000 check, moved back home with mom and dad. Within 30 days, I bought another foreclosed house, and I was like, all right, this is what I'm doing. So that's kind of what got me into the real estate.
That's it, right from school into real estate. Boom. Wow. Now, I don't recall, I mean, I love your dad. He's a great guy. I've had dinner with him and him and your mom. And was he in real estate before as well? I mean, was he kind of like the role model for you in that regard? I don't remember.
Yeah, good question. So my father, he had at that time a construction business. They're doing like very nice houses for other people, like $1 million house. They're doing $100,000 kitchens, all the woodwork. And during that 2008, 9, 10 crash, he bought, I think, 3 or 4 rentals and had me go in there for $10 an hour and rehab them. So that's kind of like where I got the skill, right? I'm like painting and doing all the work. But I actually got him into flipping houses when I moved back home with him when I was 21 years old. So
no kidding. Oh, that's cool. Well, good for you. Good for you. So why the Warrior program? Why? I mean, you were doing really well flipping. I mean, and wholesaling both. What prompted you to reach out to us?
Yeah. So this is back. I'll never forget this. In 2020, I think I've done about 40 homes by that time, and we had our 4-unit apartment building. We paid cash for. It's a small little cheap building, and we're buying our 6-unit. And I was like, all right, Like now this is considered commercial. I don't know what I don't know. There's going to be bigger, zeros. So I wanted to educate myself. Whenever I start something new, like my fix and flip business, I actually hired a mentor for that fix and flip business. And we grew exponentially after we did that. So now I never start a new business without hiring a coach. So when I wanted to get into multifamily, I was like, I need to find the best multifamily coach out there.
Oh, stop it. You guys can't see me if you're listening in your car, but I'm taking my hands and I'm pushing my hands towards me like I'm stop it, but I'm not saying stop it. I'm saying give me more. But anyway, well, so how did you find my ecosystem? Was it through the podcast or what?
So yeah, it was actually through my friend's podcast.
Okay.
I listened to it. You were being interviewed. I listened to that podcast, Rod. It was the only one I've ever done this to. I listened to it 3 times, like within 3 days. And I was like, wow, like just your 2008 story, losing, I think, 800 homes and learning to avoid all of those costly mistakes. So that was just what attracted me to you and your group.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
So how did you take, and I want to get into kind of the nitty gritty because there's a few ways we can go with this conversation, getting into the wholesales, et cetera. How did you take your single family skill set and then transition that over into multifamily?
Yeah, great question. So with the single family, we do a lot of direct to seller. So that's what I use for the multifamily. That's how I got my 4 unit, my 6 unit. We have 11, 16, and 17 are all through direct to seller marketing. And so I just use that same skill set I use for my single family and just transitioned it over. And then also on the construction side, we're not afraid of heavy lifts because we're used to buying houses with mold and walls are falling over and, hoarder house. So again, we can just go in there. We can look at properties that most investors wouldn't buy because it needs too much work. And we're able to accurately estimate renovation costs, go in there and turn the whole property around.
Yeah, your dad's in construction. I mean, hello, you guys have both of these things licked. You're on the marketing end, he's on the construction end. So let's circle back to your direct-to-seller marketing, though. I don't want to jump past that. So give some examples of what you mean by that. Give us a little more micro description.
So it's funny, you give these examples too, and I'm sure most people probably overlook them, but my 4 unit came from Craigslist. My 6 unit came from Facebook Marketplace, right? Mailers, other wholesalers, really like all those direct-to-marketing channels that you kind of hear about. I wish it was like one and then I would just focus on that, but it's multiple channels.
Yeah, I teach all this at my boot camps, but it's great to hear somebody actually validate, some of these things that I teach because, they all work, but you have to do them. And so you've done all those flips and the multifamily you've purchased has all been from your direct-to-seller initiatives. Do you do any cold calling as well, or is it all, without the cold calling?
All without the cold calling. That was one. I'm not passionate about cold calling. So for me to like train someone and hire them, I've hired 3 companies and none of them work. So that's the only one that I don't utilize.
Yeah, no, I understand. You really have to either enjoy it or be a glutton for punishment or train somebody to do it. To do it. That's the only way it works.
Now, give us some of the details. I know we were talking about this before the podcast. Tell us about, the unit sizes, how much, you've made on some of those multifamily wholesales, and then you can kind of lead into, helping the other warrior.
I already bragged about that. I already stole his thunder, man. He made $175,000 on one. He helped a warrior make $225,000 on another. So he's asking you about unit sizes, but you mentioned you bought a 16 unit or 17 unit.
Yeah, so I can talk about those and like how I structured them. Like my 17 unit that we have right now, this is an amazing deal. It's up in Michigan. This is one that we closed in 6 days.
How'd you find it? Start there. How'd you find it?
So that one came from direct sell. That one came from a mailer.
A mailer. Wow.
You know what's funny? So the gentleman who had the letter said, Mike, when I received this, it was a nice professional letter. And he said, I had no interest in calling. But I filed away in a folder. 6 months later, my property manager passes away. And he lives far away from the property. He's in his 80s. And he's like, I don't want to collect rents on July 1st. So we're in the middle of June. So I made him that promise. I said, okay, I'm going to buy this before July 1st. But to do that, I'm going to need some seller financing. He's like, okay. We walked the property. This property needs a lot of work. Again, this is one that would scare most people. I think 5 of the units of the 17 were occupied and no one was paid. Yeah. So this was a heavy lift. But when you come across those, there's also a lot of opportunity. We bought the 17 unit for $225,000, 90% seller financing, 0% interest for 4 years. So
I'm sorry. One more time. I got distracted. Repeat that.
Yep.
Repeat that.
So basically, I bought the 17 unit for $25,000 down. I have a note for $200,000 at 0% interest for 4 years.
Wow. Good for you, man. That's freaking awesome. Good for you.
And how are you getting that? Are you just asking?
Hold on. I got a follow up. So this guy was 80 years old.
Yeah.
Yes. Did you bond with him?
Yes.
Yeah. See, guys, whenever you're dealing with an elderly seller, this is one of the things I teach. Be more focused on the relationship than the asset, because when people get old like that, they're relationship driven, and you don't do it to take advantage of them. You do it to cut a great deal for them. You know, he wanted cash flow. He didn't want to deal with the tenants, and it's a great, phenomenal deal for you. And so you befriended him. You know, young guy comes, he wants to help you out, and I'm sure that was a component of it as well. And man, that's just so anyway, please continue.
Yeah, but it again, it's a heavy lift project. We're gonna put another $225,000 into the project, and that's how we negotiate the seller financing. He obviously wanted more down payment, higher interest, and I said, I would love to give you that, but this property needs so much work and money. I have to put that money into the building. Otherwise, I would give it to you. And I'm like, does that make sense? And yes, that makes sense.
Yep.
So
I've had that same conversation getting seller financing on my deals, and when I've bonded with sellers, sometimes I've actually done them nothing down. It's like, hey, I got to put the money into the deal, and it was the truth, and it just like in your situation there. Wow. So where are you at, and how long ago did you buy it? Where are you at in the process?
Yeah. So we bought this over the summer. I actually was going to quick flip it to some other investors because it's outside of Detroit, not inside the city. It's a lot of studios and 1 bedroom, so I'm not fond of the property. I actually ending up selling it twice. They fell out of contract twice. So January 1st, we're like, all right, I'm just going to do this thing. And we've rehabbed 7 of the units, new kitchens, bath, doors, floors, trims, toilets, all of that. And we have another, about 10 to go. Roofs are getting done as we speak. Siding's getting painted next week. We'll be done with the whole renovation by the end of the summer and hopefully do a cash out refi by the end of the year or beginning of next year.
Well, I want to caution you, and those of you listening, small units have a lot of turnover. Studios have a lot of turnover. So, I had a 24 unit, I remember, here in Fort Myers, and it was just a nightmare because the units were small and they were studio and they just turned over all the time. So just be careful with that. Michael, if I were you, I'd unload it when you can, frankly, rather than maybe refi it. But that's my 2 cents. I don't know how, if the units are small. If they're good sized units, maybe not. But if they're small, I would absolutely unload it once you're done with it. That's, again, unsolicited advice, but that's what I do.
That's one thing I wanted to ask about, right? Because I know you've mentioned you do a lot of, smaller to medium-sized deals, we could call it. And maybe it's just your skill set. Do you have any, and I get asked this all the time, should I do smaller deals? Should I go bigger deals? Do you have interest in doing bigger deals, syndications? Do you just like doing these because they fit your guys' skill set? What's kind of been the strategy or thought process around that?
Yeah, great question. So, I like the low risk of these deals because we'll be into this one for $450,000. 17 unit, it'll be brand new, roofs, doors, trim, you know what I'm saying? So it's very low risk. Even with a lot of them being studios, it should be worth about $1.1 million. So if I'm into, at 45% of value, my 16 unit was very similar. We paid $900,000 for it. We're putting about $100,000 into it, and it'll be worth 1.6. So we're gonna have another $600,000 in equity about. So that's what I like about these smaller ones. Again, it's very similar to these fix and flips. I'm buying at 75% of ARV minus repairs. It's kind of the way I'm looking at these properties.
Now, ARV, guys, those of you that have never done single family, is after repaired value. Yeah, okay. No, I listen, whatever works, and it's obviously working. I mean, I've seen you on vacations. I've seen you're living large. So whatever you're doing is working.
Yeah. And one trend I want to point out as well that I see you doing, not just that wholesale deal, but I see you posting calls that you have, strategy sessions, helping other people. And I know that's one thing that we talk about so often is just giving without the expectation of receiving. And that's so much of what our successful students do. What are some of those things that you do to just give, help other warriors, or even just investors in general to help them? What are some of those things that you do?
Yeah, I can bring up that Brandon story, that $224,000 assignment fee if you guys want.
Yeah.
Talk about like health. Okay, cool. So thanks to Rod though, joining his program, backing up a little bit. So that one where I made $175,000 from, it was a self-storage facility. Going through Rod's training, he talks about population and location because that's the things you can't change. Looking at population trend. A lot of Michigan is actually declining in population. There's only 4 counties inside of Michigan that are like steady. The rest are declining in population. So going through that training and in looking at this deal, I realized that the self-storage facility we were looking at was in a small town. It's the population is going down. So I made the decision of like, we almost backed out of the deal. My 2 partners were like, hey, let's just back out. I'm like, you know what, give me 2 weeks. Let me see if I can find a buyer. I've done this in the single family. I've never done this in multifamily, but let's see if we can do this. Within 2 weeks, we found a buyer who was willing to pay $175,000 more than what we had it under contract for. We wholesaled it. I told that story in the Warrior group. Everyone was cheering, and Brandon Hicks saw it. And he's like, hey, you know what, Mike? I'm actually looking at this self-storage facility up in the Boston market, and I'm looking at maybe syndicating it. I've never done a deal before. Can you look at it? So I spent, a few hours going through the deal with him, estimating renovation costs because it was an old mill building that had 3 different roofs, an asphalt roof, a shingle roof, or a flat roof, and a slate roof. I'm like, oh man, that slate roof's going to be expensive. So again, after going through the renovation costs with him, like, this is maybe a $300,000 renovation budget. Are you prepared for that? Do you have the skills for that? So this is a deal that Brandon actually almost walked away from. And I said, you know what? Hey, you have it under contract for a great price. He also went direct to seller, negotiated great seller financing terms. And I told him, I think we can sell this for, more than what you have this for. And a few weeks later, we ended up doing the same thing, and he made a $224,000 assignment fee check.
Wow, that's freaking awesome. And guys, like you said, that's just how collaborative the Warrior Group is. And I remember when you did that, you actually were responding to my post because I was asking the Warriors, how many of you have made over 100,000 wholesaling a deal? And I had a dozen. This has been almost 2 years ago, isn't it? It's been a while. So I said, how many of you made over 100? I had 12 of them say yes, and 2, I think, made over 1 million. So, I mean, wholesaling multifamily is don't discount it, okay? Yeah, you may not do as much volume, but the numbers are much, much better. And, in our Warrior program, I have a wholesaling course. It's called The World's Greatest, well, it's self-named, I named it, The World's Greatest Multifamily Wholesaling Course, and, because I got to name it. But anyway, so, but it's, wholesaling is wholesaling. It's really not, rocket science. You put a property under contract and you sell the contract. But you have to have a buyer's list. You have to have people, so there's pieces, that you have to work on. But let me ask you a question, brother. We get a lot of people that want to do this business. And my God, I think there's incredible opportunity coming. I just interviewed a guy here in my studio, a very sobering interview. I'm just going to tell you, Bruce Frazier. Yeah. He's an economist, and man, I'll tell you, I think we're headed for some pain, but that said, we're headed for some incredible opportunity. So back to my question, speak to the people that are listening that know they need to do this. They know they need to take action. You know, they're on the sidelines. Maybe they've done some single family. Maybe they haven't, but they know they want more for themselves and their family. Speak to those people for me for a minute, Michael.
Yeah. So if you're on the sidelines, you know, I would say, you know, think about what you want. So I'll just talk about myself. So when I joined, I knew I wanted to do this. We joined in 2020. And Rod, the cool thing with that is I didn't know anything about multifamily. I didn't know how to evaluate it. I didn't know a lot of the education you have in your program. So I really went from like 0 to 100. In the last 3 years, we've made over a few $1 million for me and my family, helped retire my dad. I've helped another warrior make $250,000 and leave his job. So because of what you've taught and because of, you know, putting what you've said into action, just in a few years alone, my life has transformed and other people's lives have transformed as well.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that, buddy. I really appreciate that. I really appreciate that a lot. And guys, if you're listening and you want to apply to the Warrior program, which I highly encourage you to do, because even just going on the phone with my team, you'll leave a better person. But if you want to apply, you text the word CRUSH to 72345. So we can help you crush it in this business, and we will look you over. We don't take everybody, and you'll look us over. And if it's a fit, I mean, my warriors are somewhere in the 150 to 160,000 unit range right now that we know of. We're doing a count right now. We're going back through the Facebook group and tracking all the people that posted they did a deal, and it's staggering how successful they are. And you see the team element as well, right, Michael? You just see how connected the group is. Would you agree?
Oh yeah, we actually 2 hours ago, me and a few other warriors were looking at this big Texas deal where it's completely vacant, over 100 units, and you know, estimating renovation costs and it going in on it together. So yeah, and they're all warriors too.
Yeah, awesome. That's it's super.
And by the way, just real quick, Brandon, who he's talking about with that self-storage deal, we had him on an episode 653. So for the listeners, if you want to go hear a little more detail from Brandon on that wholesale deal, we had him on episode 653 a little while back. So go listen to that. What are some of those other people that you're talking about? Tell us about this deal, man, for the future. What are they bringing to the table? Tell us about the story of this deal and, you know, where you want to go here moving forward.
Well, he may not want to disclose it yet. They've got it under contract.
Yeah.
Just leave it at Texas.
Why is it exciting? Yes, exactly.
Right.
Very broad.
Yes.
Right.
But the cool thing is, you know, you work with your superpower. Rod talks about that. And, you know, there's the money raisers, and we're the construction experts, right? People are leaning on us to give us, you know, about how much a thing's going to cost, because we've gone through at a smaller scale, but we've done it to homes, 16 units, 17 units. And we know, I have the data of like how much it costs to do complete remodels. So,
yeah. So that's the value you're bringing to the table. So let me ask you this. How did you get over your fear of doing larger deals? If there was any, I mean, you'd already done some houses, so maybe there really wasn't as much, you know, I was interviewing this Bruce just a couple hours ago here, like I said, here in the studio, and he said he had an old guy tell him once that he asked, you know, I want to get into real estate, what should I do? And the guy told him, just buy something. Doesn't matter if it's a big deal, small deal, whatever, but by doing it and going through it, you'll get past a lot of the fear because that takes the mystery out of it. Would you agree with that?
Okay. 100%.
Yeah. So was there any fear jumping up to a 16 or 17 unit, or there was, you're nodding. Okay. So talk about how you got past that.
So it's funny, just what you said. My mentor in the flipping business said, your first deal is harder than your next 10. Your next 10 is harder than your next 100. And I've done close to 100 deals. And now I don't even see them in person. I just look at photos, right? It's just repetition. But the first one is the scariest one. Same with multifamily. I don't know what I don't know. I wasn't sure how banks evaluated multifamily. I knew how banks evaluated a single family house. You get comps in an area. So I was actually, when we joined, we were buying the 6 and getting under contract on an 11 unit. And that's why we joined. I was like, listen, I don't know what I don't know. And you brought up, because again, these are direct to seller. So there's things like you said, environmental tests. Get an environmental test in all of your properties. And, if a bank didn't tell us to do that because we're direct to seller, we wouldn't have known to order that ourselves.
Right. Let me speak to that for a moment, guys. I tell, if you do a direct to seller deal or seller finance deal, rather, any bank will make sure you do a phase 1 environmental. And here's why. If there was formerly a dry cleaner or a gas station or anything that could have chemicals, and you buy that property, I don't care if it's the day after you close, if the EPA finds something wrong, guess who pays for it? You do. And so you always do a phase 1 environmental. They're I don't know, $1,500 or something. They're not a lot of money, but that protects you. So that's what he's talking about there. So let me ask you this question, brother. I mean, you're young, you're still young, and you got a long runway ahead of you. But what's your definition of success? What's success going to look like to you?
That's a great question. So I joke around and say success is waking up without an alarm clock, because that means you have complete control of your calendar. And to me, I'm already successful. I wake up early and I work hard, but I work when I want. I work on projects that I want. And, I'm able to, like you said, you're alluding to, we're on vacation. We're gone 6 weeks of the year. We're in Aruba and the Keys. And I took my mom to the Keys. She's never been to the Keys before. And I was like, Mom, you want to go to the Florida Keys? She's like, sure, I've never been. And, being able to do that and give back to my parents without looking at the price tag and just living free in a free country, that's success to me.
Oh, that's a beautiful answer. Yeah, I remember taking my mom and dad on a cruise when they were alive, and just how excited they were and how great it felt for me, to be able to do that for them. So you were talking about what you'd say to somebody sitting on the sidelines. What actions would you recommend that they take to implement some of the stuff that we've discussed here? You don't have to tell them to go to the Warrior program. They already got that memo. I mean, they if you're interested in multifamily and you don't check it out, then that's on you, honestly, because you're crazy not to. But just beyond that, any other actions you could suggest that they do to to forward themselves towards this outcome of living like you live?
Yeah. So, my first, the 6 unit and the 11 unit, I actually partnered up with someone because I was scared. I've done 40 homes to this point, but I was scared. I remember that. So I partnered up with someone who already had units, and he was already managing properties. And I think he had 40 units himself. So to kind of, de-risk, I gave majority of the deal on my 6 unit just so that we could buy it and I could learn and have that experience. And then I found the 11 unit, and this was awesome. We built a great relationship. I managed the renovations on our 6. He actually front loaded all the money and the renovation costs for the 11. So now I got a piece of an 11 unit just because I found it. Again, helped manage the deal, but with no money into it. And that was a great way to learn and get into the deal. So, leveraging other people who already have experience in this industry.
Oh, that's a great suggestion. If you can bring a deal to, like in our Warrior group, if you join our Warrior group, the 2 things I'll tell you to focus on first are finding deals and or building relationships with potential investors to bring money to a deal. You do one of those 2 things, you're in, period. It's game on. And like you just said, you bring a deal to an operator that has merit, and you're going to get a piece of that deal. And that's how you get started. That's how you build your resume. And then you've got a couple, and you're off to the freaking races. You don't even need anybody anymore. But that's how everybody does it. So that's great advice. Any setbacks or any hurdles that you had to jump over? I mean, everybody has them, but anything come to mind when I ask that? Any seminars, as it were, that if you've got one that will give a lesson to the audience, I'd love that you share it.
Yeah, so I was thinking about this question. I don't have any too big, seminars. I've lost some money in single family,
Sure.
A couple $1,000, something like that. But honestly, really what I do is I try to learn from other people's seminars, like your seminars. And I love that you're so open about it, where you had 800 houses that you lost. That deterred me from buying a bunch of single family houses and going to apartments, because you were explaining how your apartments are doing fine, but the houses work because you go from 100% occupancy to 0%. So my full goal is really to, mitigate how many seminars I go through and learn from others.
Smart. Are there any, well, just this is the last question. Are there any quotes or, anything that drives you, anything that really juices you, any quotes like that come to mind, or books that you would recommend that really juice you? Anything come to mind when I ask that question?
Yeah, so I'm a huge Jack Canfield fan.
Me too.
Book, The Success Principles.
Great book.
It's you can get the audio version. Listen, I can't read. I'm not that great. So I do the audio version, and it's an amazing book, and it just talks about entrepreneurs overcoming obstacles, and I just love like the mindset, and there's parts talking about visualizing what your life will look like in the future. An amazing book.
It's funny that you say that. I'm pretty sure that was the book that was kind of the impetus for me to start doing my Own Your Power clips. And I used to call them driving force clips, but I started calling them Own Your Power. And I'm fairly certain it was that book. I was like, man, he's got all these different categories of, motivational content, motivational topics. I'm pretty sure that's the book that I kind of like, that's what I thought about. I thought, I'm going to start talking about each one of these topics on the show. I'm fairly certain that was it. I'm going to go pull it out of my library and see, but I'm pretty sure that was it. It's like different topics, right?
Yeah. It's different topics, different entrepreneurs going.
Different principles. Yeah, different principles. Yeah. Love it.
That's it.
Well, listen, brother, it's great to see you. Give your mom a hug for me and slap your dad on the back of the head and tell him it's from me. And I appreciate you being on the show, brother. It's great to see you.
Will do. Thank you, Rod. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
All right.
Thanks,
All right, buddy. Thanks. So one other quick thing. We encounter so many people that are frankly frustrated. They're looking in the mirror and they're frustrated that they haven't been able to escape the rat race. They haven't been able to build cash flow to the point where they're able to have financial and time freedom with their families. And maybe they see other people buying real estate and creating, incredible cash flow, and they think, well, it's just scary. Buying apartments is intimidating. And I get it. See, that's why we created our Warrior Mentorship Program. They're our coaching students, and they've had extraordinary results. My students, I've been teaching about 5 years. They own upwards of 140,000 units now that we know of, right? And we feel like it's just getting going. Now, we're looking to grow this group and really take it to the next level. And honestly believe that the greatest transfer of wealth could be upon us right now with this current economic environment. Everything's going on sale. So we're looking for people who want to follow a proven framework, really like a blueprint or a map, literally step by step. And then they're able to leverage our systems and our incredible network to raise money and equity, to find deals and close those deals and build partnerships, really nationwide. So if you're interested in finding out more about how you can become more in our incredible network and take advantage of the unbelievable opportunities that are upon us, you can apply to my Warrior Mentorship Program by texting the word CRUSH to 72345, or you can go to mentorwithrod.com. And what we'll do is we'll set up a call so you can check us out and we can check you out and see if it's a fit. Now, again, you can go to mentorwithrod.com or text the word CRUSH to 72345 to apply, and we will speak soon.